Hello and welcome back to the BYP Network Leadership Conference. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. You got time to go to the networking booths and the expo booths where all our corporate partners are. Don't forget, if you were at the expo booth or if you haven't gone yet, go back there, press register your interest so that these companies can reach out directly to you. They have hundreds of job opportunities and they are looking to hire today. So the expo booth area is more like a careers fair. So make sure you check that out. And also, even though this is happening on the main stage, there are 4 other sessions going on right now in the sessions tab. So click that on the left, check them out. They might interest you more than this. So do go over there. And that will keep happening every hour. There'll be 4 sessions that you can look to. But whilst we're here, don't forget hashtag is BYP Network. BYP collaboration is key and BYP Leadership Conference. So welcome, Yemi Lalude, partner and head of Africa at TPG. I'm so happy that you are able to join me at the BYP Network Leadership Conference. I feel like I should give people a bit of a background story as to how we met. So we met through Jean-Marc Lauchez, who I met him at maybe a year ago now, and he is an impressive individual. And he'll be doing a talk with us over the next couple of days as well. So make sure you tune into that. And I remember asking him, do you know other Black leaders? Is there anyone else you can connect me to? I need the role model visibility, and so do our members. And Yemi was the first person he thought of. And when myself and Yemi connected, I was just so blown away by his story, especially the journey from Nigeria to where he is today. So I won't say too much. I'd love for Yemi to introduce himself. Don't be humble with it. Let us know. And then we can be humble again.
Kike, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Apologies to everyone for the psychedelic background. I'm actually in Dubai on half term with my kids, hence the very colorful tiles in the hotel room behind me. So hopefully it's not too distracting. But really impressed with what you've built here with the network. So quite excited to be part of it. I'm surprised I hadn't heard of it before this year, to be honest. But there you have it.
No worries.
As Kike said, it's interesting because I was born in the States. My parents both went to school in the States. Actually met in the States, got married in the States, and eventually made their way back to Nigeria. So I moved back to Nigeria when I was a baby. Went to school in Nigeria, in Lagos and Port Harcourt. Primary school in Lagos, secondary school at FGC Port Harcourt. So those of you who are from Nigeria would know FGC Port Harcourt. And then subsequently went to Unilag, where I studied engineering. And after I graduated from Unilag, I really got excited about what was happening in technology in the US, in California and Silicon Valley specifically. So I was really keen to go to graduate school in the US, but in California. I literally applied to 3 graduate schools for my master's in engineering. It was Stanford, UC Berkeley, UCLA. Like that was it. I didn't want to go anywhere else. I wasn't interested in anything other than California. Luckily, I got into all 3 of them, and had the opportunity to visit Stanford and really just fell in love with the campus and the people. I was lucky enough to get what's called a university fellowship. So basically, it was tuition free, and I got paid in those days. Just to give you a sense for how long ago this was, I got a stipend of $12,000 for the year, which was actually enough to cover all of my expenses, believe it or not, almost 30 years ago. But it's just one of those things. I never, growing up in Nigeria, just imagined I would find myself in that sort of an environment. But I just, I worked hard, I was focused on it, and I knew what I wanted to achieve, and was quite lucky to be able to get that opportunity. So I was at Stanford, did my master's in engineering there, and then got a job with HP, Hewlett Packard, the computer printer company, as an engineer. So I designed printers for a living. I did that for 6 years, but was always interested not just in engineering but in business. Right. So my plan was to go to HP a couple of years, 3 years, something like that, and then go off and get an MBA. Fortunately or unfortunately, they kept giving me all sorts of interesting things to do. So I couldn't quite leave. Every time I wanted to leave, they'll say, "Well, why don't you do this new thing?" But after 6 years, I said, "Look, guys, really, I am going to apply to business school and leave." But it was a fantastic experience for me. Got the opportunity to lead teams at a young age. So I got my first management job when I was 25 years old on a production line for printers that generated $20 million a year of revenue, and I was in charge of the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
So it was really sort of a fantastic experience. Everybody on my team was older than I was by many years. So, I mean, many of them were like married with teenage kids, frankly. So it was really a fantastic experience to get leadership, to get exposure to leadership at a very young age at HP. But for my MBA, I went to Harvard Business School. So I was there for 2 years, and fantastic, transformative sort of experience for me. The thing I would say about business schools in general, especially for HBS, but I think in general for business schools, is just it's as much about the people you get to meet and spend time with as the academic content per se. For anybody who's considering going to business school, what I always will say is just take the time to get to know people, because 20. So now I'm sort of 21 years out of my MBA, and it's all about the relationships that you built in those days. That's really what you get to take away. I think the academics you can pick up anywhere. Frankly, that's not what it's all about. So the networks are quite important. So just spend time, get to know people, go on holidays with them while I'm in business school, and just get to know them as people. But really good experience for me. And while I was there, I was chatting with one of my good friends from Stanford who was in the venture capital business. Now, a group of us from Stanford would get together like every Christmas. And we got together one year, and he said, "Oh, venture capital is this thing. I think you'll love it. It'll be quite interesting." This is before, frankly, venture capital in those days wasn't as, shall we say, sexy as it is today, with everybody wanting to get into the business. It was much more of a cottage industry than it is today. So he told me this, which I said, "Well, that's cool, but how do I get a job in venture capital?" And he said, "Well, you set up on your own on that one." So I tried to come up with a way to do it, and came up with what at the time seemed like a very crazy idea, which is to try to get an internship with a venture capital firm. Now, it's crazy because venture capital firms actually don't really hire interns. It's just not the nature of the industry to do that. So that was the first crazy thing. And then the second crazy thing was that I thought I'd have a better shot getting an internship with a venture capital firm outside the US. And the reason for that is it's a small industry. 60% of VCs went to Stanford or Harvard anyway. I mean, I went to both, which is great, but wasn't particularly going to give me a leg up to actually get a job. But I thought if I pitch up in some emerging market, I might convince somebody to actually give me a job. So I got a list of all the VCs in Singapore, and I chose Singapore because when I was at HP, we had facilities there. So I'd been there several times on business, so I could at least argue to somebody that I knew something about the country, and cold called basically all the VCs in Singapore, and finally got someone who was crazy enough to hire me. We never met in person. We spoke on the phone a couple of times, and he said, "Look, come over. I'll buy you a ticket, give you enough money to live." Actually, lived in a hotel. Funny enough, in Singapore, it's cheaper to live in a hotel than to get an apartment for the summer, for the entire summer. And this is how I got into the investment business. So the thing about that, and it's kind of an odd story, but I think for me, the big takeaway from that story is that sometimes a frontal attack isn't what it takes to be successful or to achieve your goals. You have to try to figure out different ways of doing it. So if I just done the regular thing, which is just apply for jobs, I probably wouldn't have gotten one, frankly. I had to do something that was different, that was unusual. I mean, I was the only one I know from my class at HBS who did something like that. But you have to figure out what is it that you want to achieve, and what are the different ways to do it. I mean, there's creativity required in life. I think, frankly, people value creativity. When I hire people now, like there's somebody I have on my team, and he was just very creative in how he reached out to us. It didn't come through a recruiter. He did it directly. It was LinkedIn, and he's fantastic. Right. So just the fact that you're willing to take the extra mile and do something creative to get a job, I think speaks very highly of you, and people actually look quite favorably on approaches like that. So anyway, I spent the summer in Singapore, good summer. I'd actually already accepted a full-time job with a software company, Civil Systems. So I spent 2 years there. And interestingly, the partner who hired me in Singapore, I partnered with three other individuals to set up a firm that is now a very successful firm called GGB Capital. So after 2 years at Civil, I joined them in the US. I was there on the very first fund, right? So there were 18 months into it. I was there for the first 3 fund cycles. Now they manage multiple billions of dollars, but back in those days, there were only 6 of us at the firm. For the part-time CFO, I used to write the letters to investors every quarter. Oh, wow. And again, very, very unique experience, right? To see what it takes. There's 4 guys that never worked together before, right? So it's completely new. So what does it take to set up a firm from scratch, build a culture, and ensure that the firm actually lasts and outlives the founders, which is what was happening with GGB Capital. So very lucky to have that experience. But after 6 years there, started getting excited about what was happening actually back home on the continent, and came up with yet another crazy idea, which was to move to Lagos and go set up one of the first proper VC firms on the continent. Which, I mean, many people thought I'd finally, completely lost my marbles on this one. Because the idea of doing technology investments in Africa in 2008, 13 years ago, it was just not something most people would consider. In fact, I think many of the investors we met with probably took the meetings just because they wanted to meet these crazy guys who are going to do a VC fund in Africa. Ha ha ha! We've got to hear this story. But we actually got it done through the financial crisis, because we got caught up in the middle of that. I moved to Lagos, like I said, early 08. Financial crisis was end of 08. We're all set to close the fund. Investors dropped out, complete mess. But cut a long story short, ended up raising $50 million, which we invested.
This is a live audience. You'll get a round of applause, because we know how hard it is to fundraise for your company or a VC fund. So that's incredible.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I'll tell you. I mean, there were days when I thought, what am I doing? Is it really worth it? Especially when some of the early investors pulled out, and I'd hired a couple of people who had relocated, one from the UK, one from the US, and basically had to pay them out of my pocket for a year. Yeah. Because we didn't have any money, but we got it done. And 6 years ago, just over 6 years ago, I was approached by TPG, who were interested in building out an Africa presence, and I wanted somebody to run it. So I joined TPG, and I've been responsible for the Africa business for just over 6 years now. So it's been quite an adventure. FGC Port Harcourt seems like a long time ago now.
Honestly, that story is just incredible. There were so many twists and turns, and I feel like the main thing I heard was just drive, ambition. Nothing seemed to hold you back as well. Didn't seem like you had any fear. It also sounded like you knew when you wanted to move on. You weren't stagnant in any one place, and you weren't worried to go on to the next big thing or do something, as you mentioned, is seen as crazy. I guess, firstly, why do you think you had that ability? Like, is there a way others can build that if they're in the current position they are now, and they don't know what they want to do, or they might know, but how do they just be ambitious in that way and drive forward? Because you have been throughout your whole career.
Yeah. So the first thing, it's a very good question, actually. And the first thing I would say is, at the end of the day, you're 100% responsible for your career, right? Like, it's not your parents. It's actually not your mentors. I mean, if you have mentors, it's fantastic. to have that sort of experience. You have, somebody you dedicate time to helping you build your career. But at the end of the day, you're 100% responsible for it. So if that's the case, the same way, if you had a task to complete at work or something, you have a plan and you execute to, and the things you're trying to do. So just a few tips for things that I've done over the years. I never really had sort of a master plan that said I was going to, and I didn't even know what private equity was, right? Or venture capital. I didn't know any of those things. So you can't really sort of come up with this 30-year plan because if you could see 30 years into the future, I think you might figure out some ways to make money that none of us have ever thought about. So who knows what's going to happen, right? 30 years down the road. But you take it one step at a time. And the important thing is that you always want to be in a position where you're always learning, you're always building, you're always getting better at your craft and learning new skills. And one of the things I did to track that at HP was every year I updated my resume when I was at HP for the 6 years I was there. Now, I did that not because I was looking for a job. In fact, I never applied for my 6 years at HP. Like I said, I had a great career there. I always had interesting things to do. I never applied for a single job outside the company in the 6 years I was there. So it wasn't about that, but it was a way of systematically just keeping track of my skills, right? Because you put together a resume, you look at it, oh, okay, I did this, I did that. And it's just a discipline of doing it and building that out over time. And then you can see the progression of your career and track it. So that's something that I did that I think people might find useful as well. So it's just so you don't get stagnant, right? And you're always thinking about, okay, I haven't done this, maybe find a way to build some additional skills. So that's sort of number one. Number two is just having the confidence to take risks. So when I left San Francisco to move to Lagos, I remember having conversations with people, and they would say, "Well, what's your plan B if it doesn't work out?" Which I thought was the most sort of strange question ever that anybody would ask that. Because my basic philosophy was, why would I spend time on a plan B? I'd rather spend that time making sure my plan A works. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, then I'll do a plan B, right? I mean, I'll react to it. I always felt like I was, I could always find somebody to hire me to do something, whatever that something is. So I wasn't concerned that I was going to be on the streets without a job. I'll figure something out. I could go teach math at primary school, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll always find something to do. So I never really worried about the what ifs of if it doesn't work, right? Just sort of focus on the future and just go for it. And the third point I would make is, again, you never know where life takes you, right? So you need to keep your antenna sort of up, trying to understand what else is out there, what else could be interesting. When my friend told me about venture capital, it was a group of guys out having drinks, right? So I could have just not paid attention to it, but it triggered something, and I thought, well, okay, maybe I should check it out and see. Right? So always be open. Just always keep your antenna up, looking for opportunities. That's not to say, and that's the one caveat to that is, don't do that at the expense of your current job, right? You need to focus on making sure you're doing well in your current job. Don't be so focused on what you might be doing tomorrow that you're not focused on making sure that you're doing what you're responsible for today properly.
Yeah, that's what I want to touch back on. So you came basically from Nigeria to America to London, and we know, for example, like even just in London, there's people that grow up in council estates or don't have much role model visibility, or just the area around you doesn't make you dream big or makes you feel like your future is limited. But how did you kind of go from Nigeria and just feel like, yeah, I can go anywhere, I can achieve anything, and not have that limited mindset?
Yeah. And now this is I mean, it's I don't know what I call it, $1 billion, $1 trillion question. I don't even know what it is, right? But this is the question, frankly. And I have to say, those of us who had the advantage, and I'll call it an advantage, right? There are all sorts of issues, no electricity, armed robbers trying to rob, like on and on and on, right? For those of us who grew up in Nigeria or in Kenya, wherever it is that we grew up, the one advantage we had is that we grew up in an environment where everybody looked like us. or the successful people were like us. You know, the surgeon looks like you, the pilot on the plane looks like you, the lawyers look like you. So there was never any concept of you not being able to achieve something due to something you can't change, which is the color of your skin, right? Obviously, people are not all the same. So if you're growing up in the slums of Lagos, it's not the same as if you're growing up in the most expensive neighborhood in Lagos. That much is clear. But at least that was something you had control over, because there are people who went from the slums to the nicest neighborhood. But one thing you can't change is the color of your skin. Yeah. So we never had that disadvantage. We never had to fight against that psychologically. And I think that's the big difference, frankly. Right. So if you don't have that baggage, then to you it's just, well, you know, I want to try to do this. I'm going to study to do it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But you know, it's not going to be because of the color of my skin. It's because I didn't work hard enough. So that's sort of number one. And the question, of course, is for people who haven't grown up in those environments, how do you sort of develop the same drive, the same life philosophy that says, you know, I'm going to achieve whatever it is that I set out to achieve. I think for people in that situation, it's quite important then to seek out role models who would help you understand that, you know, you really can achieve a lot more than the environment in which you were brought up might suggest, right? But it takes more effort. There's no doubt about it, because if you grow up in Lagos, it's just organic. You're there. It's just there. You don't even think about it, frankly, because it's just your life. If you're growing up in a housing estate in the UK, you certainly have to put more effort into it.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very happy to see your organization and several others like it that are set up to really provide the role models to people, to help them understand that people who are just like them, there's no difference, able to achieve things because they're just willing to put the effort in. They're willing to just work hard. And the other thing, which actually I don't think I've ever told anybody this before. This is always my big secret in school. So I will disclose it today for the first time. But what I did when going through university is during the summer holidays, when I would do internships, like I worked every summer, and as an engineer, you had to do internships anyway. I'll get all of the material for the next year, and I'll read it during the summer before school starts.
We did not. I don't know who else.
So this is my secret weapon. So by the time school started, I'd already seen the stuff. If I didn't necessarily understand all of it, but I had exposed out to understand 70% of it. Just reading on my own, and I did that every summer.
But again,
every year in advance.
Still mindset, though. I think we can still hear a mindset. You know, for you to even have the view that, you know, I'm going to do that. That's not something that comes into everyone's head. You know, summer, I'm enjoying my summer holidays. I'm not thinking, let me study ahead. So, yeah, I think there is just a mindset there that it'll be great for the audience to take in. Maybe it's a mindset you were just born with. Maybe it was instilled in you. But it just sounds like, you know, people have to develop this kind of mindset of what's next, or, you know, thinking forward. That's how I would put it. I don't know if you agree, if that's what you do.
Yeah, it is. And it's also a question of you need to be motivated, self-driven. And unfortunately, this now I'm going to sound like an old man, you know, these days, kids these days. There's too much of coddling of kids in a sense. Like when I was growing up, I remember some of my friends, you know, who sort of live in the same neighborhood, would ask, you know, maybe end of the term, I'll get a prize, right, for something or the other in elementary school, and say, oh wow, that's great. Did your parents, you know, give you a gift for it? I'm like, no, never, not once, ever. Because the philosophy always was, look, we've done a thing, you know, we have our degrees, we're done, right? We're working. You're doing it for yourself. So you have to be self-driven, right? And I think that's where it started. So I never was doing it for somebody else. I wasn't going to, of course, obviously your parents will be excited and congratulate you for all of it, but I didn't do it because my parents are going to, I don't know, buy me a bicycle because I won a prize in school, because it wasn't, no, I did it for myself. So having that sort of self drive, I think is quite important. So It goes back to the point around being 100% responsible for your career. At the end of the day, it's you, right?
Yeah.
It's your life, and you need to be focused and dedicated to optimizing it.
You have to take ownership and complete control.
Yeah, that's right. Nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah, completely agree. And with that, I hear a lot of hard work. Did this all come easy, or was it a lot of hard work, a lot of grinding? How would you describe how hard you worked to be where you are today?
Well, it's a lot of hard work, right? So it's a lot of late nights, but you just keep going. You do the all-nighters. I remember at HP, I mean, sometimes I'll be on call for the production line. Back in those days, we had pages. You got to call at 2 o'clock in the morning if there's a problem, and you have to wake up, get in your car, and drive across the office and try to fix it, and you just keep going. So the hard work is, I mean, I guess some people are lucky and successful with that hard work, but I think if you're hardworking, the chances of you being successful are much higher.
Yeah.
And to be able to just wake up and just keep doing it, right? You just need that drive to do it, and that's the thing that is, I think, most important.
Yeah, I feel like we just don't have enough time. I think half an hour should have been 1 hour. That's already what I'm feeling. I can see some questions as well. Before I get on to a question I see, we didn't even touch on the fact that you were able to raise $50 million in 2008. And before that, you were working for a firm. Then you started your own company. Then you're now back working for a firm. So how have you been able to maneuver that? What made you want to start your own business and then go back into the world of work?
Yeah, so with starting my own business, it was really opportunity driven more than anything else. I'm not one of those people who is all that concerned about having my name on the door, metaphorically speaking. So it really wasn't about that, which is why I didn't name the firm after myself, for example. I just saw that was an opportunity. I thought technology investing in Africa was the way of the future. I was probably, to be fair, 5 to 7 years early in that vision. Obviously, today it seems like an obvious thing, and there's plenty of interest and plenty of investments. But I just thought there was a market gap that I could go, and I had the skills to go fit it. And I thought it would be sort of interesting to start something from scratch. And I have to tell you, it's the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life, right? So to go from, I remember when I had the initial idea, I was driving to work on Sand Hill Road, Highway 280 in California, when I had the idea to do this. And to go from just an idea to anybody who started a company has had this feeling as well, to maybe to start a firm, when you hire people and you raise money, you're up and running. It's just incredible. I can't think of anything more satisfying, frankly, from a business perspective that any human being can do. So that's what drove that. And then the transition to TPG for me was again driven by how can I be most effective, right? I at that point I thought that being part of a global platform would be important. Because the entrepreneurs that you want to back want to be part of a global platform, you have more resources. So moving to a bigger firm and doing it within a bigger firm just made a ton of sense to me. Again, I wasn't so fussed about my name on the door. I always say to people, if you want to be a CEO, it's actually not that difficult. It takes you 15 minutes to register a company in Companies House, right? So just register a company, call yourself CEO, chairman, chairwoman, master of the universe, whatever you want to call yourself. You can. That's not the point. The point is you actually do. Yeah, what you actually achieve, right? And I've just been much more focused on achievement than some of those other things.
Wow. We have literally 1 minute. I already know that the next panel is progressing. So I'm just going to ask this question from the panel. What were the biggest challenges you had while scaling up your business?
So the biggest challenge, of course, was even getting it off the ground. Like I mentioned, we ran into the financial crisis, right, at the end of 2008. And it was, literally, we were 7 days away from closing. All the documents were done. we're all set to go, and then one of the investors pulled out, and they didn't want to pull out in a nice way. They just wouldn't return our calls, right, which was just terrible. Right, so you've done all of this, liquidated all of your life savings, like on and on and on. You're there. You can see the finish line. You can taste it, and it all sort of goes away. But we just had to buckle down. Spent 2009, most of 2009, I mean, the whole world was in shock anyway. There's nothing going on. But finally, in the summer of 2009, we got some new investors interested, and we finally did our closing in May of 2010. So we're going to close end of October, November 2008. We ended up doing it in 2010.
Wow. Okay.
So the start itself was probably the most challenging thing.
Yeah. Yeah. See, people don't get to see all of that part of the journey. They just see the gloss. We only heard the $50 million, and we're like,
that's right.
That's the truth. And even with BYP Network, we would say people only see the gloss, but actually it's hard. It's hard work every day, right? But thank you so much, Yemi. Like, so happy you were able to join us. I think everyone can agree that your story was and is absolutely inspiring. This is what BYP Network is about: showing role models, showing leaders that we might not have been able to see or know exist. But here, Yemi does exist. So, thank you so much. And to everybody watching, again, don't forget to tweet. Don't forget to take pictures, screenshot us now. The hashtags are BYP Network, BYP Leadership Conference, or BYP Collaboration is Key. Also, again, there are sessions happening right now. So click over to the sessions tab, check them out, see if any of them are of interest. And don't forget, we have over 30 corporates in the booth right now who are hiring. At minimum, register your interest so they can reach out to you with their job opportunities. But yes, thank you again, Yemi. And we'll catch up again soon and see everyone later. I'll be back again at 4:10.
All right. Thank you, Kike.
No worries. Bye.
Bye-bye.